Hello and welcome to this edition of Crossover. I'm Chi Xiaojun with Charlotte and Julian. First of all, some feedbacks from our viewers the world over.
It's been a while.
It's always nice to read the feedbacks, actually. This is the one from Joe Leon from Iowa, USA. And here in the USA, when we drink tea, the leaves are filtered out. Liquid only, whereas I've noticed in China the leaves are poured in with the liquid. So what happens to the leaves? Are they discarded after drinking is done, or are they consumed along with the liquid, or what? All the photos and videos I've seen on CCTV only show brief glimpses, primarily of the pouring, watching the leaves swirl around, etc. I thought this might be a good point of information. Indeed, this is a very good point.
A good question.
Well, so Charlotte,
you're our tea expert. It's your turn.
I'm the honorary tea expert.
What happens to the leaves?
Well, if the leaves are steeping in a cup of tea, it's much like how we would treat a tea bag. You don't consume the leaves.
No.
You drink the liquid and then you discard the leaves. However, if you do consume a leaf in the process of drinking your tea, it's not the end of the world, and people will just sort of maybe chew it up and eat it.
Yeah.
Or they might spit it back into their cup. That's acceptable as long as you're not too obvious about it. That's not considered rude in China.
If you have a hand cover it when you do
Yeah,
that.
you can sort of put the leaf
secretly
back in your cup.
Here's a little tip. When you just put the water in, the leaves will stay on the top.
True.
And if you want to drink at once, what you have to do is to blow away the leaves in order to have water without the leaves. And with some form of tea, it can be really tricky to do. But if you wait a little bit, the leaves more and more will go to the bottom part of the glass, of the cup.
True,
right?
and there are also two more techniques. A lot of Chinese cups come with covers. And if you put a cover on the cup, the leaves fall more quickly. The other trick is put the tea leaves in, pour the cup maybe a third full of hot water, let it sit for a minute, and then continue to fill it up the rest of the way.
Thank you very much for writing to us. Recently, we've actually received lots of emails from the world over, from Africa, Europe, America, Australia, everywhere. So keep writing to us, and sometimes we'll actually present your letters, your emails in this show, and possibly we'll discuss the subjects you recommended in your emails. Thank you once again for writing to us. And now let's move on to today's topic. It's basically it has something to do with the little coin.
1 yuan.
1 yuan or $1. Would you say that?
Very important coin.
Very
yes.
important.
We can say actually that the yuan in Chinese can mean the renminbi.
Yes.
But it can also mean the dollar, the euro, because the yuan is just a unit of money.
Monetary unit.
Monetary unit, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, just 1 yuan looks weak, looks not that powerful, but if we put lots of 1 yuans together, this looks nice. Well, they look like all these golden coins.
I was going to say, especially with that yellow filter on the camera lens.
Right. This coin can be powerful in all those piles, but sometimes, in most cases, it's weak. You can't really buy too much with only $1, 1 yuan.
You might be able to buy a stick of gum or a popsicle.
Sometimes it gets very powerful enough to buy Newsweek with only just $1.
That's right.
And I'm not talking about you can buy one copy of Newsweek. It's the whole company. Because according to a report on the 2nd of August 2010, Washington Post has announced that Newsweek will be sold to auto industry pioneer Sidney Harmon for $1.
Well, actually, we know what's been going on here. You know, it's the development of the internet that has played a big role in that.
Absolutely, and I think it really kind of took the whole world by storm. How fast it started, you know, making magazines and even newspapers obsolete.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this magazine, from being listed in Fortune 500 to being in red for 3 years, I guess. They had 3 reasons, according to the reports. It's one, a huge decline in commercial revenues.
Sure.
Decline in subscription. And also the reading habits change, shifting from, you know, the traditional print magazines to more digital or digital media or internet.
Yeah.
Yes, the real thing about media companies now is not about, you know, keeping it doesn't mean they're going to be out of business. It just means that sometimes a magazine like this should be totally online, digitalized, and obviously the printing of the magazine on paper is going to cost more money than it earns at the end. Because think of it, back in the day, even like I used to work in a newspaper, in a Chinese newspaper, so I know a little bit what I'm talking about. Back in the day, 7 or 8 years ago, a whole page was easier sold than now on a printed magazine or newspaper. Whereas now, for the same type of media, the advertising is going to be much more expensive on a website. Because the website is going to be here and stay here, and it's going to have a much broader influence than the on-paper magazine.
Yeah, but I mean, the similar things are happening not only in the US, but also in China. Remember, there were quite a few magazines. They were extremely successful in those old days. One is called Popular Cinema. So popular, so successful at the time. I even remember when I was little in primary school, my father, he used to buy this magazine, and he kept all these magazines.
Oh, wow.
And China, in the movie industry, we had this important award. It's called 大众 Award, or the 100 Flower Award. And all these, say, votes, you have to use the votes actually printed out in that magazine. And with that mechanism, they even managed to collect something like millions of votes.
So it was
from
kind
the
of
whole country.
The official voice for a certain, for the whole...
For a certain industry.
Area of society. Absolutely.
But that was, of course, that was the 80s. So.
Yeah, that was...
But again, this magazine is now,
out of
like
print.
Newsweek, it's in trouble. I mean, it's still there, but it's not as influential as they would expect it from years ago.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, think of how popular the internet's become in China in the past decade, even just decade, and people's smartphones and all of this stuff, Wi-Fi and all this sort of digital the digital age stuff. It really it's giving a lot of competition to the newspapers and magazines.
And now with the smartphones, you have all these applications, and it's very practical. I just got a smartphone, and the direct thing that it does to me is that I don't really bring a laptop with me anymore.
There you go.
I get all the information, the news
From your mobile phone. And here is a little information, or it's a little survey done by Chinese Institute of Publishing Science. And it says it's a little survey done in this April in 2010. According to the research, Chinese people read 15 copies less of newspapers each year per person than the previous year, and that was 73 copies. So it's, people are reading less print newspapers or magazines, and they are using more website or internet.
Absolutely.
It's going to grow even much faster for one simple reason. For the 3G, the development of the 3G technology for the mobile phones, which allows you now to have very fast connection, and you can even see videos and pictures,
everything,
and very fast.
Yeah.
So
but it's always different to hold a book, a magazine, a newspaper in hand.
I know. I'm traditional when it comes to that. I love having a book in my hand and smelling it. I love the smell of books. And being able to touch the paper and turn the pages and make a little note if I want to make a little note. I love that. So I will continue to buy newspapers and magazines and books.
I want to just show you a picture. It's two people reading newspaper. But we never know. Technologies are technologies. They are developing, and people tend to use the more convenient ways to grasp all the information.
Well, I have to say,
it's all about mobile phones or those little gadgets where you can get all the information you need.
Well, I have to say also that there are a few good aspects of using electronic devices. First of all, environment friendly in a way. Of
course. Well,
of course, there's a lot of waste caused by electronic, devices too. But the paper, in terms of CO2 and everything, I won't get into that. But this is good not to print that much paper to begin with. Good for the trees, good for the environment.
But I'm just wondering, because all these days in the antique market, you can always buy, say, this is the first edition of a novel written by who and who. But what about in the future, in 50 years' time? Okay, this is
a book. It doesn't matter.
Not really. You can't really buy the first edition. It's all digital.
Look in the specifications of the file, and it's written. It was originated in whose computer.
That'll change.
Anyway, our technologists, they are going to develop. We'll take a short break, and then when we come back, we are going to present more stories about what $1 can buy you.
Showers are refreshing, but did you know that for every minute less you spend in the shower, you're saving 10 litres of water? To save our precious water, take shorter showers. And note the water efficiency label when choosing shower heads. Grade 1 is the most water efficient. It's equally refreshing to take shorter showers and use water efficient shower heads. Save water, take shorter showers.
Welcome back to Crossover. So again, we are going to move on, not about publishing industry, but again, it has something to do with this 1 yuan or $1. What can this do in China? And here is a little story. This happens on the 3rd of August in 2010. It's really about a 1 yuan apartment. Virtually the idea is you spend 1 yuan each day, you can stay for 1 night. This is what it looks like inside that hotel.
Sort of more along the lines of a hostel.
It's not well decorated. You have to bring your own beddings, and most of the residents in this, say, motel will be the migrant workers who don't earn a lot, and if it is about a proper hotel, maybe at least it's 50, 60 kwai for 1 night.
They might not even make that in a day.
Exactly.
And I read that this was initiated by a former migrant worker himself who opened that with a businessman. And it's, I mean, it reminds me of something. I think it's a good deed, and we'll talk about the controversy about it, but it reminds me of what a very famous comedian in France did back in the 80s. He was like the number one, the most famous comedian in France, and his name was Coluche. And what he did was to fund something called the Restaurants of the Heart, which is basically for all the homeless people and people who don't have a home, can't afford a good meal, to have something that is basically a charity organization.
Yeah, we have that in the States as well. We have soup kitchens where homeless people can go. But this isn't, as far as I understand, this is not charity. This is supposed to be a money-making venture, correct?
Well, it's supposed to be a business.
Well, but I have to say, 1 yuan for a bed, I mean, it must be a pretty big building.
It is. They can hold for like 5,000 people. In total. Okay,
so big building. So but even still, I mean, how much, even though it's still, quite a bare bones building, to build it?
The building is not built by the runner of this business, but he somehow operates this business, and the daily operation cost would be 2,000 to 3,000. And
renminbi.
Renminbi.
Okay.
And right now he's attracting something like less than 2,000 people, so he's losing money for now.
Yeah.
Well, I know that people have been saying that, oh, you're not doing charity, you're trying to make money out of it. You're trying, even if you're not making money right now, but you're trying to make a big thing, big story out of it, saying you're kind of doing charity and getting some fame out of it that would allow you to somehow make money out of it. But, if you want to try to make things like that work, if you need fame in order for that to work, not to lose money and even making money, I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
No, I completely agree. I was just clarifying that he didn't start this project as a charity project.
No.
But you know, I mean, if he's a former migrant worker himself, he must know, you know, what it's like. It's hard.
Yeah.
And
Well,
how
it's-
much a place like this could mean to people who really don't want to spend that much on living expenses.
I mean, if it's going to be a win-win situation, why not? Why don't we just encourage more people to do similar deeds, similar, you know, business?
And yeah, if it has to become even about charity, we were talking about sometimes, you know, companies doing big deeds for charity, giving a lot of money away and thinking, oh, this is for their own promotion and everything, but still it's a good deed they are doing. And, you know, I think it would be a great idea. Even you were talking about electricity or energy supplying. Why not getting, you know, some of the new companies that are trying to make a name for themselves with new, you know, new forms of energy, you know, new energies,
energy sources,
and making a big thing, a mediatized campaign about that with the, you know, all these little companies sponsoring the whole project. I don't know, you know.
But
it
I
could be
mean,
a good thing.
accommodation is just one of the problems facing all these migrant workers in these cities. Because in total, it's about 200 million people working in these big cities. They've left their hometown, and sometimes they live and work in the city with the children. And sometimes the children are left behind in their hometown. I mean, the children itself, they are a big social problem. I mean, what about their education? We do see some charity projects about the schools being set up for all these migrant students, migrant children, because they might not be able to get into the local primary schools or middle schools, and these schools were set up actually especially for these migrant workers' children.
That's true, and a lot of teachers that actually teach there, I know some of them are volunteer teachers. They will go and volunteer their time to teach at these schools.
I work in one of them. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I work in one of them. But again, I mean, this is also another issue because these schools might not be that well equipped. And they could be overcrowded because you have too many children. And they might not be getting the support, necessary ones from local governments. And they have all these issues. But at the same time, they're making a great contribution. Because, you know, at least these children, they have a place to go.
Absolutely, which is very crucial.
And then, well, I know the government is doing a lot of efforts to solve that problem. And in the future, the problem that is talked about now, even with psychologists and, you know, with experts, the society experts, is about to give these children the same kind of environment and equality with the, let's say, the average city children who, you know, will have the tendency of, you know, not considering them their equal. And it's a very, very slight thing among sometimes even parents, among children. And I think in terms of education, also, it's going to be something that we will see more and more, to have them integrated.
Yes.
New policies have been introduced by the governments to solve that problem, and all these children of migrant workers, they're now being admitted by many local schools. They're also allowed to attend the exams being held in the city where their parents work. And all these are the good news for the migrant workers.
Yes.
And one thing I have to say about Chinese people, I think for a lot of Chinese people, especially for those migrant workers, they are basically sacrificing their own life. But if you give their children everything the children need, which is basically, for us, the basics of life, they will be more than happy, in a way, you know, to feel that, okay, I have done all that, but not for nothing, because my child is going to the university.
Yeah.
I think this is
they're seeing a brighter future.
Absolutely.
For their children.
Absolutely.
Still about this 1 yuan, I'm going to show this coin again. What can we do? And there is another project. This happens late July this year. It's about the 20 students, 20 university students from Zhejiang University City College, and each of them were given 20 yuan, Chinese currency, and they'll have to survive for 20 days.
On 20 yuan.
On 20 yuan.
And that has to be a huge challenge.
It is a huge challenge.
Could you do that? Could you do that?
I wouldn't even know how to eat for 1 yuan in a day.
Not really.
I mean-
Well, the underlying meaning is you have to find a job to support yourself.
Oh, okay.
20 yuan
okay.
is basically, the starting point.
Okay.
Oh, it's that
the
thing. Oh, yeah.
survival point.
Right.
I know
okay.
about it. It's a teacher who initiated that, right?
Yeah.
And he gave. Oh, I know about that.
They
story.
all got to start off with 20 yuan, but then
It's more like a reality show, like survivals. You have to go out on 20 yuan, and then, obviously you can't live on 20 yuan for 20 days. You have to go out to find job, to have a little try of real life in the society.
I read a little bit about that. Apparently, every one of the students actually was able to find a job in that period of time. Well, some had some trouble. Obviously, the younger girls had less trouble than the guys. I remember.
Well, it really depends. I mean, some really got the chance. They found the job. Some were very well paid. Some were rejected. Some were rejected actually by those owners, business owners. I mean, it's just natural if you see someone coming over, say, "Can I have a job over here?" I mean, for 20 days.
Well, I do think, having 20 yuan for 20 days was motivation enough to get these students out there and hunting for jobs and feeling that pressure or that urgency of, I need to survive. That's basic sort of survival instinct.
It
Is a good lesson, especially, for some people these days who they might not have had to really think about that kind of survival in their lives.
There are two,
it's a good lesson.
There are
is.
two aspects of that will be a learning experience. The first one is that when you have 1 yuan for a day, you cannot even take a bus because a bus is 1 yuan.
It's true.
So what happens is that quite a few of them were saying that they were walking 20 kilometers a day. This is one thing. Another aspect, and it's a cruel thing about life, especially for university students, but I think it's a great initiative from the teacher, which is that university students are learning things that they basically will not use in their everyday job or life, and we've all been there. And the really cruel part of it is that maybe when you start working, you're going to find a very, very simple job.
But I think the teacher was trying to teach all these students a special lesson about how precious money is and how hard it can be to find a right job. And if you go back to the spending habits of these young students these days, we have a little chart to show you. A little chart of monthly expenses of Chinese university students. The big part of their expense of the month is on food.
Movies. Oh, how interesting.
So it's like 2 movies a month.
But movies is more than transportation and telephone.
So it's in total, on average, is about 1,500 for a month.
This is basically nearly close to the average salary of the cities in China. The average salary, if you add everything.
And that could be higher.
It's higher than that,
yeah.
but it's around 2,000 RMB. I just saw the numbers.
2,000 to 3,000.
few days. Yeah. So it's
1,500 is still pretty high, but